The Jersey Swap podcast is sponsored by Apollo Home. Folks, if you're ready for spring like we are, give Apollo Home a call and they can get a look at your air conditioner to make sure you're ready for the warmer weather. For a limited time, take advantage of Apollo's spring deal. A new AC unit for as low as $99 a month. Stay cold when it's hot, stay hot when it's cold with Apollo Home. Give them a call or visit them at apollohome.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the Jersey Swap podcast. We talk every week with the opposition just to get under their hood before FCC can get under our opposition's skin. 6 games unbeaten. That's very good. But 4 of those matches have been draws. Each draw means that the wins in the East become even more critical, especially against this next opponent. Last time we saw them, we were staring down the barrel of a 4-0 defeat in the postseason. And here they are. The biggest challenge of our 2026 season, Inter Miami, comes to TQL Stadium on Wednesday to face FC Cincinnati. They have the highest scoring attack in the East, but who has the second highest? Your orange and blue. So we'll talk about that matchup. And with me for this early week discussion on the Lions and the Herons, he is the host of Miami Total Futbol. We're happy to have him on the show in such a busy week, to be honest, as well. Here he is right now. Let's bring him out. Franco Panizo. How are you doing, Franco?
I'm good, man. I'm good. A little, I'm not going to say under the weather, but my voice is a little raspier than normal just because I have this little tickle there. So, and it really started kicking in today. So apologies if I'm not the most pleasant to listen to, but I will have lots of insight to make up for it. Not that I sound great in general, but worse today. But plenty of insight.
I have a face and voice for radio, so I'll go in the same direction with that. Just to, we'll hit a little small talk before we can cover this big matchup. This one of the biggest ones in a midweek matchup. Just to talk a little bit about yourself and break the ice. How did you get started covering Inter Miami?
Ooh, it's a long one. So I'm a South Florida kid. Was raised here, born in Florida. I was in college trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And long story short, I ended up deciding I wanted to do soccer journalism. I ended up getting my start up in the Northeast covering the Red Bulls. There was no team here in South Florida when I finished college at FAU. So went up to cover Thierry Henry and Tim Cahill and Rafa Marquez during those years with the New York Red Bulls. And I would come down for the winter. Of course, there's no MLS season, so I'd be the youngest snowbird known to man and make my way over for 2-3 months. And at that time, in 2014, was when Beckham announced that he was going to trigger the buy option that he had with MLS. I was there for that announcement, and I have been, I was still living in the Northeast for 8 years through 2020. And right before the pandemic, I came back just coincidentally, and I always popped in for whenever there was an Inter Miami event, even though we didn't even know that was the team name at times. I was there when they showed the color and the crest. I was there when they won the vote or the initial vote in Coral Gables. So I popped in and out whenever there was big events regarding the team. And then obviously in 2020, I moved back from New York, come back home, and been covering the team in its actual existence since then. So I've covered the team since before they were even an actual team. Since they were just a thought, an idea, and I still do so and still plan to do so for the foreseeable future.
It feels good to be there for day one, maybe even day 0 or T-5. I wish I had that opportunity, but you get in when you get in. I love our team just as much as I'm sure you love your team. Before we can talk about the teams themselves, maybe just a little bit of, rustling the feathers a little bit. I know there's been some controversy to make it very poignant. We're aware of what's been happening. It's become sort of a national thing. There's sort of a small rift between yourself and Inter Miami themselves. Is there any possibility of any sort of resolution getting you back in the press box?
Don Garber's favorite line is, well, I guess that wouldn't make sense here, but Don Garber's favorite line is never say never. But look, honestly, if I'm being straightforward and, if you don't know me, then you'll get to know this very quickly as you listen to me here. I'm very straightforward. I'm upfront. I'm transparent. I'm honest. Right now, I don't think that there's a chance at resolution right now. Could there be, down the road, maybe after the World Cup or, late in the season, maybe next year, maybe. But right now I would say no. And I mean, what it stems or what it comes down to, I mean, I don't have an official answer. I've reached out to Inter Miami's comms team, which I've known members of them or members of the team since they were working at other places. One of them was at MLS when I was in New York. They were working for MLS HQ. Another one was working for Sporting Kansas City at the time. And then I went to Kansas City for an All-Star game and an MLS Cup in 2013. Another was with Orlando as a young pup when he was coming up. So I've known them a long time. I haven't just worked with them here at Inter Miami, and I have a good working relationship with them. But I have gotten no response when I've reached out for an explanation or a chance to just have a conversation to see if there's a possibility at a resolution. I'm sure your listeners and yourself are familiar with Laurel Fowler, head of NASR or NASR as it's called. And, she on my behalf through NASR has reached out as well to try to get a response, and there's no response. There's a lot of silence and a lot of lack of transparency. I mean, now I could give you my thoughts as to what it is. I wrote a story a few weeks ago, and this one I don't think made the rounds nationally as much as the news that I was denied after never missing a home game for the first 6 seasons as a member of the media. As you can see, there's a plaque here that says top attendance recognition that I was given last year. Look, Inter Miami has its comms team that I just mentioned. There's also a Messi connected PR agency that unofficially helps run things. And again, you can read this on Miami Total Futbol Substack free of charge. I wrote it a few weeks ago. They've been in there since last year. This year, they helped with the transition. And again, they operate unofficially behind the scenes. Could they be behind it? I would not be surprised because, again, I have a good working relationship with the other people. I'm not saying I'm friends with them, but we have a good working relationship, enough to at least warrant a response. But the fact that they're not responding to me, Oral, I mean, to me, it's pretty clear who's calling the shots. And look, I will be honest and admit I've been very critical of Messi at different times and different moments for different reasons, performances off the field or after game behaviors. Different things in different moments. So if that's the reason for it, then so be it. I'm an unbiased, impartial, neutral journalist, and I call it like I see it. Now, some people don't like it because they think I'm overly critical. That's fine. That's fair. That's your opinion. I've praised Messi in moments, just like I'm critical of him. And look, I hold him to a high bar, which is why I'm that critical of him. Right? I hold him to the bar and the level that he's at. He's arguably the greatest player of all time. He's still playing at a high level. So I expect him as the face of Inter Miami and as the face of Major League Soccer to be that, right? And to perform up to those expectations and to that role, whether he likes it or not. I mean, or his inner circle, his entourage likes it or not. I mean, that's what I'm going to keep doing. You can see the jerseys here. That's just to promote the team I cover. So people who are tuning into the podcast, they're very clear and aware of what we're doing. But I'm not a Messi fan, just like I don't hate Messi personally. It's just what it is from a football standpoint as an unbiased journalist. And if that has me on the outside looking in, then so be it. I can still watch, analyze, observe the team from wherever I'm at. They can take the access, can't take the audience. And crazily enough, I'm still allowed into training. So they won't let me into games. They keep denying my credential request there, but they let me into practice for whatever reason. So
that's the part that, you're talking about a lack of transparency, a lack of communication. The fact that you're getting, access in one arena and yet not in an overall arena, I think that is a head scratcher. It's a question mark that I think no media member really wants to be part of. So on my personal behalf, I hope that there's a resolution here. I hope that if there is any bad blood, that gets smoothed over, and in the end, people can shake hands. It's the same thing with soccer. You fight for 90 minutes, but after the game, you shake hands and you go back to your corner.
A lot of it seems to be about control, in my opinion. A lot of it seems to be about controlling the message, controlling the narrative. I think you have some questions later on about some of the things that were said this past weekend. I think a lot of it comes down to controlling this final chapter of Messi's illustrious and storied career, and making sure it ends on as positive a note as possible. Like, there's a lot of things at play. Again, we could sit here for a long time and go into all the layers and parts of that make all of this up, but we can leave it for another time, because I know we've got other talking points to get to, but I do think that's what it really comes down to, and whether that allows me back in or not in the near future, I don't know. I don't think so.
I think if this was a longer week, if we had a Saturday matchup, maybe we'd have more time for it, but we'll see how things knit or ravel back together, stitch back together. We have a big game, big matchup here. I do want to sort of flash back a little bit, because you guys knocked us out of the playoffs last year, and it didn't feel good for some people. For other people, they were like, hey, we just got through our biggest rivals, so we were playing with house money in the first place. But looking back at that 2025 season, you got that vital MLS Cup to go with the other two. Really, I mean, how can you define that postseason? I mean, it seems like the defense finally clicked for this Inter Miami team.
I would say the team just came together in terms of their collective functioning better. And a lot of it, again, people don't like saying this, but a lot of it came down to Luis Suarez being suspended for the decisive game 3 against Nashville SC in the opening round of the playoffs, right? It was 1-1. Inter Miami needed to win. If they lost, they were out in the first round yet again for the second straight year after falling to Atlanta in 2024. And Nashville makes an official or a formal complaint to MLS about a kick out from Suarez, and that had a major domino effect that helped unlock Inter Miami, because what it did was it forced Javier Marcherano, who was then head coach, to have to sit Suarez. He was not benching Suarez before then. He would not bench him. He would start him every time, despite the very obvious physical limitations. Look, Suarez is a pure goal scorer, and he still can finish with the best of them in MLS, but it's clear that physically his best days, his prime, that's all behind him. So when they benched Luis Suarez when he was suspended, and they brought in fresher legs, younger legs, more energetic legs, because they had to, they played much better football, much better soccer, because they were able to match Nashville more on the physical aspects, because Inter Miami can play football probably with the best of them, if they're not the best playing football team in terms of keeping the ball on the ground, knocking it around, finding the spaces. They're up there with the best of them, if not the best in MLS right now. But where they struggle is the physical components, the physical aspects of what still make Major League Soccer. I mean, those are the starting points for most MLS teams, right? If you had to describe most MLS teams, I think a lot of people would say, speed, athleticism, work rate, energy, commitment. Those are a lot of the starting points. And Inter Miami didn't have a lot of those starting points, especially with Messi and Suarez starting up top, right? Because they're older, closer to the end of their careers than the beginning, past their physical primes, even though Messi is still at a great level. And clearly you lose a lot defensively in that way. So when Suarez was suspended and the younger legs came in, Inter Miami matched teams, including starting with Nashville, on those physical aspects. And that allowed, in my opinion, my analysis, the football aspect to then overshadow everything else, because no other team could really match Inter Miami on a football aspect. But it started with the physical components, and that didn't happen until Luis Suarez was suspended. Mascherano then saw how well he did against Nashville, made the tough decision to then bench him that point forward. The rest is history. Inter Miami, by and large, beat everyone pretty comfortably, relatively speaking. It was probably one of the most dominant displays from an MLS team in a postseason from that point forward. So Tidal Allende set the record for most goals scored in the playoffs. So that says something. It wasn't Messi, it wasn't Suarez, it wasn't anybody else. It was Tidal Allende. So that's a trivia question for the future. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it was more so the defense. I think they just found the energy and the physical aspects, the athleticism. They became more of an MLS team with the football that makes them distinct from most of the league.
Yeah, I really am a part of the belief that if you have young legs in there, healthy legs in there, legs, youngsters that are willing to be directed into the right spots, moldable minds. I think that's a powerful team in the making. I argued that with FC Cincinnati last season when they didn't really play their youngsters when they needed to. And now they're playing their youngsters this year, and they're starting to look much more polished. They're looking better on offense and more confident when the ball does go in the other direction. So play the youngsters. I say that all the time, and it definitely was proof last year, I think, with Inter Miami.
Yeah, I mean, look, Inter Miami is a special case though, because last year they had, again, Messi and Suarez up top. They had Busquets in the midfield, who, as gifted as he is with the ball to orchestrate things and pull the strings, isn't the best athlete out there. Jordi Alba, who can give you something going forward as well as something going back. I mean, he also has his flaws defensively. You had 4 players that were older and that aren't able to give you that maybe nonstop 90 minutes of intensity and energy that you need on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. And once Suarez came out, they were able to compensate better with, Matteo Silvetti, who's one of the younger players on the first team, coming in. And then that tactically freed up Tadeo Allende. Again, we could go into all the pieces of it, but I don't think it was just the defense playing better. It was the team started to check off the boxes that you need to check off in MLS as starting points, and then the football miles better than most other teams.
Which is kind of amazing when you really look at the postseason and going into the off season. It felt like, okay, Miami had this team set up. They would pull strings to get the likes of Allende and Matteo Silvetti, getting them more time and more pressure to create that diamond. But then they bring in all of this experience, I guess you could call it, in the offseason. You have Germán Berterame coming from Monterrey, who a lot of people thought he was going to be the next number 9 for FC Cincinnati a few years ago. You pilfered Dane St. Clair from Minnesota to be your goal keeper of now in the future. David Ayala from Portland. You have Sergio Reguilon, former Spurs guy, being a Spurs fan. That's kind of painful to feel too. But I mean, looking at all this expertise coming onto this team, you're also expecting higher expectations. And so Berterame and St. Clair haven't really come out of the gates smoothest. Are there any issues that you feel are hindering this acclimation to the squad?
So this is, like with anything, there's a lot of different bullet points that we could talk about. But I would say this in general to the question is none of the off-season signings are really standing out for their performances. Maybe Mikael, the center back, the Brazilian center back, who had played in MLS before, came from Palmeiras, if my memory serves me correctly. St. Clair hasn't played well. Ayala has barely played, and I know he suffered the loss of his father earlier in the year. So he's also dealt with some injuries. He just came into this last game against Toronto FC and has a tremendous blunder with the game 4-0 in Inter Miami's favor. But Germán Berterame has scored some goals in recent weeks, but he's still not convincing, still doesn't seem to click and mesh with Messi, which is vitally important. Look, this last game against Toronto FC, Inter Miami scores 4 times, and the goals come from probably the 4 players with most name recognition on the team, and maybe Berterame is the 5th, but he doesn't find the back of the net despite being the number 9. Reguilon has looked good when he's played. He scored against Toronto, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy, which has been, the defining characteristic of his career the last few years. He's healthy now, which is a boost for Inter Miami, but none of the newcomers have really been overly impressive. Why that is, again, I go back to the functioning of the team. The team is built a certain way, with certain characteristics. Look, Messi is the starting point, and he has so much magic he can give you in the attack, but he doesn't give you a whole lot on the defensive side of things. Yes, he presses up high in moments, but he preserves his energy for the most part. So you lose something in that regard on the defensive side. So you also lost Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, which again, not the best athletically, not the best defensively. So in theory, you should have gotten better defensively with the pieces you brought in that you just named.
Mhm.
But the functioning is still off because it's a team that wants to play football. It's a team that wants to play soccer with the ball on the ground. That is their principal characteristic. So losing Busquets and losing Jordi Alba, they've now maybe gained some athleticism, but now they've lost some football. So now they're kind of in this conundrum of how do we play football while still matching the physical aspects, and they haven't been able to find that balance that was so brilliantly on display during the playoffs. Because sometimes they do play good football, but the defense is in shambles because the team gets picked apart because they allow too many spaces for X a number of reasons. One player has a bad game, makes a bad decision, the line's too high, the tactics are too aggressive. All these things that could go into why they haven't been consistent this year. But there's a lot that goes to it. There's a lot that goes into it. I think they're still, like a lot of MLS teams, are still trying to find the best version of themselves. You would think, or you would have hoped, if you're an Inter Miami fan, that they would have started the season, getting off the ground running, but that has not been the case. There's been a coaching change already, which I'm sure we'll talk about here. But there's a lot. It's a very talented team, but as I said in recent days, it's a very what's the word I used? Not vulnerable, flawed team. It's a very flawed team. Talented but flawed. Until they figure out the better balance of how to make it all work, the inconsistencies will probably continue.
I think we probably saw a little bit of that last season where the defense wasn't exactly 100%. This is the same team that without Messi, when they came into TQL Stadium, I mean, they got spanked. We beat them 6-1 in probably the biggest shocker. I'm being, I think a little flippant about this, but no one expected a 6-1 victory
of course,
against a toothless Inter Miami squad. And so I also think, what you're saying, that it's hard to win games if you don't have the football aspect. And maybe that was what was missing with Javier Marcherano as the head coach. He's departed. They say personal reasons. We haven't really dove into what the logistics are behind that, but Guillermo Hoyos is now the interim head coach and made a very bold statement after the last game where he emphasized, and I'm talking about this quote here, that the media has to protect Messi, that he has to be protected much more because there aren't many Leo Messis. There's only one, so take care of him because he fills stadiums, don't abandon him. So I don't know if that's part of the reason that that Marcherano departed, but I mean, is this a legitimate expectation in Miami?
There's a lot of elements
there's
to all of that.
There's a lot that I included in that question. So
no, it's all good, man. I'm just trying to think where to start. Look, with Mascherano, I reported this. It's on Miami Total Futbol Substack, again, free of charge. You can go read it. And this came out after he left for personal reasons, and I'm doing the air quotes. There was an incident, from what sources have told me, multiple sources have told me, with Messi and a member of Mascherano's technical staff. It was not an issue between Messi and Mascherano, but it was an issue between Messi and one of the members of the technical staff after a game. That led to, I don't have the specifics of what happened, but I can tell you that after this incident, after this ordeal, the technical staff, Mascherano and the rest of the coaching staff, came together as one with regards to what that issue was. And that happened in the short lead up to the announcement that Mascherano was leaving for personal reasons, which, by the way, his whole technical staff also left, which a lot of people are like, oh, well, when a coach leaves, his whole training staff leaves. Not in this case, because they would be leaving money on the table, right? They would have to get bought out, or they'd have to come to an agreement, because you're essentially just being like, all right, I'm not working anymore this year, and take my source of income, which that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. They would have stayed in their position until maybe a new coach comes in and that coach brings in his people, but they all left at the same time. So you read into that what you will as to what happened behind the scenes. With regards to Hoyos, Hoyos is Messi's football father. That's something that Messi said in an interview many moons ago when he was very young, because Hoyos was the coach or the director of La Masia, which is Barcelona's famed youth academy. And when Messi got there, Hoyos, for lack of a better phrase, took him under his arm. And there's always been a special or closer relationship because of that. And when Hoyos was appointed as the interim coach, head coach, don't really know what his title is because it's not clear. I asked him about it at one of the training sessions that I'm allowed to go to, but not the games. And he said, "La amistad no se negocia," which means you don't negotiate friendship. So that sheds some light into who Hoyos is to Messi, who he might be to the overall project. Is he a yes man? Is he a puppet? Is he just a figurehead coach while somebody else is calling the shots behind the scenes? I mean, these are all fair questions you can ask. But I think it comes down, you talked about Mascherano. Look, Mascherano didn't unlock the team maybe in the attack the way it needed to be done. And look, he was a defensive midfielder and a center back, so maybe he sees the game in a more defensive way. Maybe the attacking part is not his strong suit as a coach. It's early days for him. He'll figure it out. And we'll see what type of coach he is with more stops along the way. But I think Guillermo Hoyos is the other side of the same coin. Maybe he's unlocked Inter Miami in terms of the attack. Maybe they've improved in that regard. But defensively, they've also not looked great at parts so far.
Yeah.
Look, they're a talented team. They're going to win games, especially against teams that are in the lower half of the table. Just based on talent alone, they're normally going to beat you. But when it comes to the matches against teams that have more talent, that have more quality, then we go back to the same things we've talked about, right? Matching the physical components of what Major League Soccer is, and then allowing the football aspect to overshadow everything else or overcome everything else. So there's a lot there, man. There's a lot, protecting Messi. I mean, I was surprised by that comment because the question wasn't even about Messi. The question was about a halftime speech. And Hoyos on his own came out and said that. Some people said he might be talking about the referees or pitch invaders or this and that. And I don't see it that way. Because if that was the case, why would he say don't abandon him? What how does that pertain to pitch invaders? How does that pertain to anything else? To me, I think he was talking to the media. Look, Messi was criticized, as Inter Miami was criticized in the days leading up to that game because they had a collapse against Orlando City, which is their rival, at home at New Stadium after being up 3-0. They lost 4-3. And then they send out some youngsters or some of the younger players, Noah Allen and Ian Frey, to face the music in the post-game setting. And there was a lot of noise, including for myself, about that decision because I thought it was cowardly from Inter Miami. I'm used to it. I've seen it, that they constantly and very often trot out Noah Allen, Ian Frey, other players to come out and face the music because the big guns don't want to talk or don't like to talk or choose not to talk. But there was a lot of noise. So maybe Hoyos was talking about that. Maybe Hoyos is talking about media, don't turn your back on Messi. Don't abandon him. Stay on his side. Because, again, going back to my perception of what Unique FC is here for is it's all about controlling the narrative and controlling the image of Messi's final stage of his career.
Yeah. We'll see how that really goes out. I really think that with the World Cup coming through, maybe it cools off tension. Maybe, it allows people to reset, reacclimate, and, step on with a clean slate. We'll see. We'll see really what happens in the background with that. Most pressing thing right now, though, it is a short week. So we do have to talk about this upcoming matchup between, I think, two of the teams that are really starting to find themselves out coming through this portion of the season. Last game, Inter Miami, 4 goals, no problem against Toronto. You can say they took their foot off the gas and let 2 goals in at the end, but a 4-2 win on the road, even against an injured team, decimated. It might be a little bit too strict, but
depleted
that was
for sure. Depleted for sure.
Depleted. That's the good one. But once again, just getting a road win you needed to. And now coming into FC Cincinnati, who should have won their game against Charlotte FC, but a 2-2 draw in a place they've never won at. I think people will take that for right now. The Jersey Swap podcast is also sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a Cincinnati physical therapy and fitness business that helps people of all ages stay active and fit. They also work with local MLS and MLS Next Pro athletes, and they're the official physical therapy provider of the Manu Ledesma Academy UPSL team. See how they can elevate your health and fitness at gobeyondexercise.com. But let's set up the stage here. I'm going to set this is what it looked like against Toronto FC. If you're listening, you have St. Clair in the back. You have Lujan and Michael as your center backs. Once again, you had mentioned Noah Allen. You have Mura on the right there. One of his finally starting to start these games. And then in the middle, you have Yannick Bright, Rodrigo De Paul, Segovia, and of the three in the front that I think are really starting to click together. Why shouldn't they? Suarez, Messi, and Berterame. Looking at this, maybe top three here, do you feel that this starting attack, as much as you say that Luis Suarez is a little older, do you feel this is a good attack to stay for the long term?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think, and the reason why, again, is not because of the attacking output. I think because you lose a lot defensively. Suarez and Messi don't give you much, as we've discussed earlier. Berterame does. Berterame can press and run and do a lot of the dirty work that the other two can't. But in the attack, he hasn't found that chemistry, and he's not clicking with Messi the way he should be. Otherwise, he'd have more than 3 goals that he's had so far this year. So I don't know if long-term this is the 3 that you will see up top. I don't even know if this is what you see on Wednesday, because the question is, does Messi play again on a short turnaround? Given that they also play this weekend at home, where you got to sell tickets, you got to have butts in seats, you got to keep your fans happy.
Right.
Does he play on Wednesday? Does he even travel on Wednesday? I think those are fair questions. We probably won't get answers to, because Sergio Reguilon speaks tomorrow to media, but Guillermo Hoyos does not speak until Friday before the next game. So we probably won't get answers as to if there's a rotation or what the availability could be like. But I think it's something to keep an eye on, because the World Cup's around the corner. Messi will want to go to the World Cup, I'm sure, in as good a form as possible, but also probably not taking any major risks. And maybe at this point in his career, he doesn't need to play 3 games in 7-8 days, with 2 being games that you have to travel to. So I don't know if we'll see this front 3 long term, and I don't know if we see it on Wednesday. I definitely think Reguilon comes in as a starting left back for Noah Allen. Reguilon came into the game against Toronto FC, looked good, scored a goal, his first goal with Inter Miami. So I imagine he will start, but obviously all eyes will be on whether Lionel Messi travels with the squad or not. If he's not in the picture tomorrow, right, if there's no picture of him jumping on the plane, as Inter Miami tends to do, then you can start really considering about whether he'll be available or not.
Who do you think would really settle into his spot then if Messi is considered out? I mean, if we even discuss that.
If Messi does not play, I mean, normally it would be one of Tadeo Allende or Matteo Silvetti. Now, Silvetti was in uniform but did not start against Toronto. Allende wasn't even on the match day roster. So Silvetti would have to be next man up, unless Allende is ready to go for Wednesday, which question mark, because the explanation around his absence on Saturday was strange. It was said that he traveled with the team, but before the game, it was a coach's decision not to include him in the match day roster because of muscular fatigue, and that's the general BS line that they trot out when they're trying to either hide an injury or something of the like. So normally I say Allende, but probably Silvetti in this case.
Yeah, I mean,
depending what happens with it.
looking at some of these substitutions, I mean, I know you're up 4-0. Maybe you start giving some of the academy kids some work. Preston Plambeck, Daniel Pinter, don't necessarily see those names coming off to play the final 15 minutes of a game, but maybe just to sneak this in there, did you see anything good coming from the youth that were playing these last minutes?
Yeah, I mean, there's solid minutes there. I mean, you're surrounded by talented players, so it's easier to look good. You just have to keep things simple and do what your role entails. You don't have to try to overdo it. So there's been good minutes, not just in the Toronto game, but in recent weeks. Planbeck, came out of nowhere. No one had him on their radar, and he came in the game against the Revolution, if I'm not mistaken. Almost scored on a shot from distance that was well placed. Probably lacked a little bit of power, but was well placed. And there's been good minutes. There's been good minutes from the youngsters, but that shows you, how much Inter Miami's bench is lacking options right now. Because under normal circumstances, these guys aren't playing under normal circumstances, right? But they are because of suspensions, because of red cards or yellow cards, because of injuries. So they've gotten some minutes. They've done okay with them. Nothing, no game changer, but it's part of the season, part of a long season where you have to start tapping into your depth and into your squad a little bit more, because you're a little bit thinner than you'd like to be.
Okay, well, let's then start wrapping things up a little bit. Let's say, okay, take the DPs out. Take the superstars out. Who do you feel has to be an X factor in this game to really, I think, turn the tide for Miami on the road?
Well, they've been good on the road this year. It's at home where they can't win. They haven't won. And people are jokingly saying that it's the Franco Panizo curse, that until they give me my credential back, that they will not win a home game. Which, look, I don't believe in that, but I will not shy away from having fun with it either. So I've actually had this kind of revival with WWE since my missus got pregnant last year, and I'm super into the Dan Housen character, which, if you know what I'm talking about, the "You Are Cursed" is fascinating, and I will use it any chance I get for Inter Miami, and if they keep not winning at home. But anyway, to answer your question directly, who has to be? I mean, so non-DPs.
I mean, let's just say it's like someone who has to be the difference maker.
Well, so I imagine, because it's difficult. It's not that it's difficult. It's not as straightforward with Inter Miami, because Luis Suarez is technically not a DP, but I imagine you don't mean him either, right? I imagine you you take him out of the equation. So it can't be Messi, can't be Berterame, it can't be Suarez, and it can't be DePaul. Reguilon, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe at left back, because look, they just swapped out Maxi Falcon, who's probably who's probably been the leader, the vocal leader on the back line. And now he's had some bad games. He was benched against Toronto. Gonzalo Lujan came in, I thought he was poor last year. I think he's been quietly solid this year whenever he has appeared, but I don't think he gives you that vocal leadership, right? So you're going to need that. And maybe Reguilon, another shout. Maybe this was actually the better answer, is probably Dane St. Clair, right? If he does get tested by Cincinnati's attack, is he going to be closer to the version of Dane St. Clair, MLS goalkeeper of the year, or is he going to be Dane St. Clair inconsistent 2026 version that we've seen with Inter Miami this year? I think now that I've thought about it a little more, I'd probably put Dane St. Clair as more important than Reguilon, but Reguilon, again, can make a difference from that left back spot. Not saying he's Jordi Alba, but he gives you a lot more of those similar qualities than anybody else, and that adds a dimension to Inter Miami's attack. So those would be the two, but I'd probably put St. Clair ahead of Reguilon now that I've been able to formulate my thoughts.
I think that's a good call. I think St. Clair, he still has a lot of that talent, and he still has a lot that he needs to prove that he can be on the guy on Canada's team. I mean, it looks like the Canadian goalkeeping position has been so up in the air because both of the big names have not really shown consistency. I think that's a good call. I think I'd like to see what Yannick Bright can do. I mean,
I think Yannick Bright has been tremendous this year.
mm-hmm.
You know, take away the suspension for the racial slur aside, I think he's been tremendous in terms of performance level. Somebody asked me in recent days, aside from Messi, who would you vote for on the All-Star game if anybody was deserving? And I think the only player aside from Messi that is deserving to this point in the season is Yannick Bright. But I don't know if he'd be enough of a difference maker for your question, right? So I think St. Clair would be better suited for being a type of player that can make or break the game. Because look, Cincinnati's at home, the crowd will be behind them. They're going to create chances. And Inter Miami also plays very aggressively. There's spaces to exploit. Inter Miami is going to give up chances. Can St. Clair stop a few of those? Look, if Cincinnati's wasteful on the night, then that helps Inter Miami tremendously. But let's say that they have a normal night in terms of putting the ball on target. St. Clair's going to have to come up with some big saves to give Inter Miami a chance. Because, again, we know what Inter Miami can do in the attack. And I think that's something I haven't said or I haven't said directly that I think needs to be said. Inter Miami is not a team that is going to beat you regularly 1-0. They are a team that needs to outfire you or outshoot you, or if you're scoring 3, they're scoring 5, right? It's not a team that's made for grinding out 1-0 victories or 2-1 victories. It's a team that's built on its attacking edge. That said, you probably need St. Clair to have a couple of good moments to be able to put out another road victory against a talented Cincinnati team.
Are you predicting a road victory? I'll open it up right here. What's your thought, real quick?
No, it's difficult with Inter Miami, man. Every time I've predicted them to win at home, they end up losing and blowing it. Sometimes I've even said it on my podcast, Miami Total Futbol. I've said maybe my mind is overrating this version of Inter Miami, but on the road they have been good. I'm going to predict a draw. I'm going to say 2-2 draw. 2-2
okay.
Draw.
I mean, I'm sort of in the same boat. I really think that our defense isn't great. I think lately we've been looking at Miazga's got to get healthy. Miles Robinson's got to get healthy, and showing that he can be that defensive presence, that a captain material that he has been earlier this season. If we can get that version of the defense, the 2023 version of the defense, then I think you see a low scoring game, believe it or not, especially if the likes of Messi aren't going to be playing this game. I see a 2-2. I see 2-2 is just about right. I mean, maybe even 3-3. There could be a big time.
But then it's not low scoring. Then it's not low scoring.
Well, that's the thing, is that even though these haven't been low scoring games, the defense has kept it together for the offense to make up for that. I just hope. Yeah,
I've known him for a long time, man. A long time, from the Red Bull days.
Right.
I actually met him right before he signed through a mutual friend. He was in the pool in the backyard of a mutual friend from Florida who was in New Jersey for the summer, and her cousin, best friends, or really good friends with Matt Miazga, and Matt Miazga was chilling at the pool in their backyard. I ended up giving him a ride home. He hadn't signed for the first team yet. He signs for the first team next year. So I've known Matt a very, very long time. We have a good working relationship.
And if he has a good performance, I think that settles a lot of people's fears that his best days are past him. I'm going to predict 2-2. I think it's just about right. Yeah, I think both teams on short rest will appreciate taking a point out of this. It just can't happen more and more for this Cincinnati team. They cannot be losing more and more ground to the likes of Nashville and Chicago, and even DC United, who are starting to rev their engines up a little bit too. We've gone way over the amount of time that I was expecting.
That's my fault.
It's no problem at all. I talk a
lot.
I'm glad that we were able to talk and get through colds and whatever you have here. Floor is yours. Open it up. Let us know where we can find you. By all means.
Yeah, man. Follow on Twitter or X at Franco Panizo. The YouTube channel, if you're interested in Inter Miami coverage or Messi coverage, we upload all the interviews from all the availabilities that we're at. We even get some of the ones from the games because we have access to. So full comprehensive coverage. We do it audio, we do video, we do written on the Substack, but at Franco Panizo for my personal Twitter, and then at Miami Total Futbol on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcast, if you want to listen or watch, because we do an audio visual podcast. So all things Inter Miami in bilingual form, of course, because we're in South Florida and se tiene que hablar inglés y español. So English and Spanish, we do the whole thing, the whole nine.
Every 6 months, I learn a brand new language, and Portuguese this time around, but Spanish, I'm sure, will come back into my my Rolodex of knowledge. Thank you very much for your time, Franco. It's great to talk with you for this 45 minutes. If you want to listen to more of us talking with and analyzing the competition, check out the Jersey Swap podcast. Check us out on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We're if you want to get us on all the socials, we're at Cincy Soccer Talk, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Facebook. We're all in your face with that as well. And support us as well. Go and check us out at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Support. We could definitely use every ear and every voice in the Cincinnati area. On behalf of myself, on behalf of Franco, on behalf of everybody here at CST, thank you very much for your time listening, and keep your kit clean. Can't wait for Wednesday.